Hi, everybody. This is Max Steinerman. I'm the Director of Sales at InfoReady. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us for our webinar. We're going to give folks about 2 more minutes to join, and we'll be right back on the line with you. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So as I said before, my name is Max Steinerman. I'm the Director of Sales at InfoReady. I want to again thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and especially thanks to our panelists for joining us and for sharing their best practices as a resource for all of you. So today's webinar is going to cover best practices for managing internal funding competitions. And our guests, we have 2 sets of guests. From the University of Michigan Medical School, we have Laura Hessler and Jill Jividend. And then from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, we have Lisa Youngentab. Next slide, please. Great, so just a little bit of background about this Peer Spotlight webinar. So this is part of an ongoing webinar series that's presented by InfoReady, where guest panelists share best practices with, in regard to some of the processes that they manage, and discuss best practices and how they manage processes at their specific institutions. Next slide, please. So just some kind of housekeeping items about the webinar. So the webinar itself is scheduled for 25 minutes for our panelist presentations. We'll then have 30 minutes for Q&A. And at the end, as we always do, we'll stay on the line for a brief high-level overview of the InfoReady review system. A couple of points here. This webinar is going to be recorded, as all of our webinars are. And we will provide a link to that recording in the week or so after the webinar. All of your phones are muted by default, and if you have any questions, please submit your questions through the questions box on your GoToMeeting control panel. We also have a PDF of the slides from this presentation that can be found in the handout section of your GoToMeeting control panel. And also, don't forget, we send out a post-webinar survey. And we're always trying to improve the quality of these webinars. So, please offer your feedback if you have time after the webinar. Next slide, please. So before we get into our panelist presentations, just a little bit of background about InfoReady Review and kind of who we are as a company. So we believe that solutions need to be user-friendly, quickly implemented, and shouldn't require any kind of IT support to really be scalable, especially in an academic environment. Next slide, please. So in its basic, in basic terms, what InfoReady Review does is it kind of provides a portal for applicants, reviewers, and admins to all complete their roles relative to a competition or application process. And so, what you can do, and we'll see this in the demo at the end of the presentation here, is admins can configure the system and any kind of workflows that they need to manage competitions or application and review processes. They can disseminate those opportunities, collect the applications all from one place, route for review and approval, make awards and track the outcomes and post-award reporting and things like that. and then export very powerful data in the form of reporting on processes, success rates, things like that. Next slide, please. So this is just a list of some of the processes that our clients use InfoReady Review to automate. And I won't read all of those, but please feel free to peruse those for a second here. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of what we're going to be hearing about from our panelists today, so we're going to be talking to folks or hearing from folks from two of the top medical institutions in the country, University of Michigan and the University of Tennessee Health Sciences Center. From the University of Michigan Med School, we'll be hearing from Laura Hessler, who's a program manager, and Jill Jividen, who's the assistant director of research development. And from the University of Tennessee Health Sciences Center, we'll be hearing from Lisa Youngentab, who is the director of research development. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our panelists here, and we're going to start off with Laura and Jill from Michigan. Laura is a project manager at the University of Michigan Medical School Office of Research. She's a U of M graduate, and she's been at the U of M for over 20 years. In her current role, Laura helps manage new and existing tools and services for the medical school research community, and that obviously includes InfoReady Review. Part of her effort is to support education and training for opportunity managers in the medical school's InfoReady Review site. Please note that U of M actually calls InfoReady Review competition space on their campus, so you may hear those names used interchangeably by our folks from Michigan. She's also the project manager for the implementation of new Michigan Research Experts, a web-based researcher profiling information system. And Laura has expertise in administering processes around external limited submissions, pilot and seed grant funding, bridge funding, and other awards. Next slide, please. So Jill, also at the University of Michigan, she's been an assistant director for research development at Michigan since 2014. Before that, she worked in various research administration and research development roles, both in the medical school and in the central campus at U of M, including the School of Information and the Institute for Research on Women and Gender. In her current role, Jill leads a team that coordinates the R01 bootcamp, provides proposal development and editing, oversees internal funding, and presents grant-related workshops across campus. In 2018, Jill was elected to the board of directors for the National Organization of Research Development Professionals for a 4-year term. And a shout out to all our NORDUP people. We're looking forward to seeing you at the end of April up in Providence.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting us to talk to you today about some of our processes at the medical school at Michigan. We're flattered to be invited. This is a little bit about our office. We are a service delivery unit, and we deliver services and tools that enable our faculty to support their research activities. Our motto is "We focus on you," and it underscores our commitment to reducing administrative burden on our faculty so that they have more time to focus on discoveries that impact our patients and the knowledge base of human health. Next slide, please. The medical school was the first at Michigan to implement InfoReady Review, and we launched our first opportunity in 2014. We negotiated a campus-wide agreement in 2015, and since that time, we've grown to have over 26 unique sites at the, I guess we call them tenants at InfoReady Review, but 26 unique tenants operating across the institution at the school, college, or program level. The medical school was an early adopter, and as such, we have a lot of data in our system. We have over 200 administrators and over 5,700 applications. So the functionality to have microsites is great, but it isn't feasible for us because of the amount of data in our system. So we get around that. We have some 7 additional tenants associated with the medical school that are running unique programs. And they include collaborations between medicine and other schools and colleges at U of M. They include the Michigan Medicine Office of Corporate and Foundation Relations, which promotes opportunities through private and professional foundations and corporations. And we have a department that is using the tool to recruit faculty. So we have some other sites at Michigan that are doing other work, but we've developed our site as a one-stop shop for internal funding opportunities for our faculty. So we can add new sites at the medical school, but we need to be thoughtful and strategic about it, because we really have worked hard to encourage our faculty to go to one place to find funding opportunities, and that's our main site. By the numbers, you can see the opportunities that we've run since implementing in 2014. Awards is typically honors and recognitions, but sometimes people use grants and awards interchangeably. So that can also include some grant opportunities, even though we try to be careful to keep them in the right bucket, because you can filter on opportunities from the landing page. We want people to find what they're looking for easily. It also includes some travel awards. We have bridging support, lots of external limited submissions, other opportunities, which can be things like summer research opportunities, fellowships and internships, faculty or postdoc recruitment, and development programs like our Office of Research Mentored Research Academy R01 Bootcamp, which is a program for faculty who are developing their first NIH R01. Let's see. Next slide, please. We manage a lot of pilot grants in InfoReady Review. So we implemented the tool as an online workflow process for bridging and limited submissions, but quickly saw that we could use this as an opportunity to increase the visibility and transparency around the pilot funding opportunities at medicine, and also facilitate central reporting around the outcomes of our pilot funding opportunities. Pilot funds are awards of limited funding for research projects through an internal review process. They often have the goal of generating preliminary data, pursuing new areas of investigation, or creating new collaborative teams. The expectation is that the opportunity, or the awarded proposal will likely have a high potential for follow-on funding. Sources of pilot grant funding can be extramural, it can be internal, or it can be philanthropy or gift fund. We surveyed the pilot program landscape at the medical school in 2014, and I was not a part of that, but a result of that survey was the dean's centralized pilot policy, which requires the use of competition space for these processes you see on the screen. We are required to use competition space to post pilot opportunities and collect applications, so that opportunities are no longer dispersed across multiple websites and through emails. It has high visibility in one location for our faculty. We have a standardized review of an investigator's total available resources. We're required to report on award decisions within the tool within 60 days of the review. And we have a progress reporting requirement, and awardees are required to report follow-on funding and publications. Next slide, please. This is a little snapshot of the standardized financial report. It's the other support that was created to support the pilot grant review. The purpose of this is so that when our faculty report all of their active and pending financial support, including external grants and contracts, discretionary, gift, and other pilot funds from across campus, review committees are easily able to see if this is if this pilot opportunity will provide a unique opportunity to advance promising research that isn't already being supported by another mechanism. Next slide, please. And this is the progress report form in InfoReady Review. This is the form that everybody's required to fill out when they've been awarded bridge funding, or excuse me, pilot funding at U of M Medicine. And You can set this up easily in competition space or info-ready review. Ideally, you'll set this up at the time of the award so that you can sort of set it and forget it. It's a great functionality. Our administrators don't have to think about it again until 6 months or a year later when they notice that they're receiving progress reports on their opportunities. So another great functionality of the progress report and info-ready review is that administrators can enter that data on behalf of their awardees. So that's a nice function also. Key to the success of our policy is compliance. It's always hard work to get people to comply. We run a lot of pilots and we have a lot of administrators, but it's important. So some of the things that we've taken on to support that is acknowledgement of the centralized pilot policy by all new administrators. When we get a request from somebody for an administrator role, we discuss the policy with them and get their acknowledgement that they understand it and they're willing to comply with it. We also point them to training in the back of the tool so that they can understand how to use the progress reporting function, and we're also happy to support that training in any way we can. And we do quarterly reviews. We go in at least 4 times a year and make sure that reports are happening, that awards are being made in the system, that they're reporting how much funding was given out, and the progress reports are happening. So, so that's all a process. Twice a year, we provide complete pilot reports to our Senior Director for Research so she can inform our Dean. And they're interested in knowing, you know, about the success of our programs and who's being awarded funding. And so that's a very important report, and we rely heavily on info-ready review for that information. So it has a robust reporting feature, and we're able to capture all of that information and easily provide a nice clean report to our Dean. Next slide, please. So this just illustrates again that we rely completely around using info-ready review for all of these processes, and it makes it very simple for us, and everything's in a centralized location. And the centralized pilot policy and info-ready review allow us to understand all of the pilot programs and the sources of pilot funds at the medical school, so we can see how medical school funds are being reinvested in our faculty, and also allows for annual reporting so that we can see if our faculty are finding and applying for opportunities, and we can understand any returns on investment. So competition space is at the center of that process for us. Next slide, please. We also manage a bridge funding program here at Medicine, and it's available to all of our basic science researchers. And we manage the program in 6 consecutive 2-month cycles each fiscal year in competition space. We have a program administrator whose responsibility it is to work with our faculty applicants and ensure the eligibility of the grant and the PI, because we have criteria around those. They have to have a history of R01 funding. The R01 or R01 equivalent grant needs to be in the medical school, and a few other things like that. But that's the program administrator's responsibility to ensure the eligibility of the grant and the PI. They also ensure that the application is received at least 2 months in advance, so that the PI can actually take full advantage of the review process and the feedback that comes out of that process, and have time to incorporate it in their grant if they wish. The program administrator ensures that the application is complete and accurate. It has a lot of components, so that's a big responsibility. And also identifies reviewers and ensures that the review process occurs in a timely way. We understand that the jobs and research program may be dependent upon these funds, so we're very conscientious about the timeline. And they also are responsible for making sure that funding decisions are communicated to the applicant. And you can see our timeline in the yellow arrows there. It's really about a 6-week process. Next slide, please. So finding reviewers for the bridge applications, there's a couple of ways to do this. We have We have a space on the application where applicants can suggest peer reviewers, and we may or may not use those peer reviewers. We also use Michigan Research Experts, which is a searchable online database here at U of M, which showcases research expertise across disciplines from many of our schools and colleges. We can search the database by keyword, visualize research networks, and sometimes proactively identify potential conflicts of interest. We do all of our peer reviews through InfoReady Review, and so we rely on InfoReady Review for that process. The UMMS Biomedical Research Council is a standing committee that's existed since 1975. It's comprised of about 15 biomedical researchers from both clinical and basic science departments. And as a part of their service, they function as the peer review body for bridging grants and also a subset of prestigious external limited submissions. And they use competition space for their reviews, but they also like to dialogue in a web-based tool we have at U of M called Box that's available to everybody on campus. And it allows for a real-time online discussion. So they will often look at the materials and have a conversation in the online tool, and they may identify that additional materials are needed or additional information is needed, or even reach a decision around the funding decision around the grant, and may be able to save some time and not have to meet in person. So that's a great little tool. And I was told to tell you, I know it's not all about InfoReady Review and to share other tools we use, so I wanted to make you aware of that, something that we use. And if you could go to the next slide, please. We also manage limited submissions in our office. We do partner with the Rowell Cancer Center and also our Central Campus Office of Research. We manage about 40 limited submissions at Medicine. They manage many, many more at our Central Campus. And the majority of the ones that we manage here at Medicine are awarded by foundations and corporate sponsors, but we have some federal opportunities as well. We work as a team with our partners at Rowell Cancer Center and at UMOR, which is our Central Campus Office of Research, to share best practices and share information so we are aware of what opportunities are being managed and we aren't duplicating effort, and we're able to respond quickly to faculty inquiries around opportunities in a consistent way. We also have links on our site and the Central Campus Office of Research to one another's InfoReady Review platforms so that faculty can easily be routed to the other site to find additional opportunities. Looking at our process map, I'm sure this is familiar to everybody who's managing limited submissions, but we identify the opportunities, we develop a timeline, we create the application and launch, promote opportunities, manage the review process, and communicate decisions. And we use InfoReady Review for the last 4 pieces of that process. Next slide, please. So finding opportunities is a hard work sometimes. We do go out and search the web. We rely on our development partners to find opportunities for us. We receive invitations from foundations and corporate sponsors, and we rely on our deans to pass that information to us. We also use Pivot, which is great. We can set up filters so that we get notifications around external limited submissions, and we can even use the push filter to initiate applications, to initiate competitions. We establish timelines by reverse engineering from the sponsor's application deadline. We try to allow as much time as possible for our applicants to develop their proposals, but we want to get things reviewed quickly, and that's sometimes a big part of the timeline process, identifying appropriate reviewers and allowing them time to review. And we also have a two-week deadline here at the medical school before sponsor deadlines so that it's reviewed thoroughly here by our grants office before it goes out the door. So a lot goes into our establishing a timeline. We create the application in competition space. Usually we use the templates that we've built up in InfoReady Review over a number of years. We have a carefully curated set of templates that have a lot of information that is really germane to the internal competition. The pivot push to InfoReady functionality is great. Certainly it reduces the opportunity for error around deadlines and verbiage. So it's great that that functionality is there. I still really rely heavily on my templates and InfoReady Review. Our internal application is sometimes a scaled down version of the sponsor's application. So we may not ask for as robust a proposal. We may not ask for new letters of recommendation. So we like our templates because we already have all of that information in there. So we are not asking them to complete an entire application ready to go out the door to the sponsor, and allow them time after review so that they can build that if they're selected as the nominee. And promoting opportunities, we have email groups. MailChimp is set up at the central campus level, and they have email groups for people who have opted in to receive information on external limited submissions in the health sciences. They also have newsletters, and we have newsletters here. Most of those are on the Constant Contact platform, but we always post our opportunities in e-newsletters and just really try to get the word out. We also make sure that our deans and associate chairs for research are aware and count on them to filter this information down through their departments. And next slide, please. Managing the review process, we love to ask for keywords in an application in a limited submission. That helps us a long ways towards identifying reviewers with expertise that's relevant to the proposal being submitted. And again, we can rely on Michigan research experts to help us find experts in their field. And communicating to our nominees, we use the notification templates in InfoReady Review and communicate our decisions through the tool. We notify a wide group of people when we are selecting an institutional nominee. We want to make sure that the chair or division director or associate chair for research, in other words, the leadership of the nominee, is aware of the nomination. We want to make sure that the nominee's department research manager and grants manager is aware of the nomination and the deadlines. We have an email group that includes personnel in our grants office, project representatives at our Office of Research and Sponsored Programs, our Senior Director of Foundation and Corporate Relations at Michigan Medicine, and also University Development, and our partners over in the Office of Research and Cancer Center who need to be aware that we've identified somebody to go forward and apply for this opportunity. We do not want multiple people submitting internal applications to go out to a sponsor when it's limited. And we require the nominee to attach that email communication from competition space to their proposal approval, their proposal approval form to Office of Research and Sponsored Program. That way they know that that is the officially chosen nominee to go forward with an application to the sponsor, and hopefully helps ensure unsolicited applications. We use the email templates in competition space, and we also try to provide as much information as possible to our recipients. Deadlines, links to award details on the sponsor website, FAQs. We point them to institutional contacts for assistance with writing proposals, and also contacts over in ORSP and anybody who can help them get it out the door. And also, we have the ability to send reviews of proposals to the applicants, and we're very careful if we include that in the award email, that particular information only goes to the applicant. We feel that's very confidential information for their eyes only. So the functionality is fantastic. We just utilize it very cautiously. So can't be too careful there. And we use Excel, use good old Excel to track the outcomes of our limited submission. And yeah, we wish there was a way that our competition space and our e-research platforms could talk to each other, but we still do a little bit of manual labor to find out if the eventual outcome of the application to the sponsor. So it's important for us, but we're often, we're going on the web to see if there was an announcement on the sponsor's website. We're using our internal resources like e-research, and we have a grants database here in the medical school, but we need to know the outcomes, and our institution is interested in knowing how successful we are in obtaining these opportunities. So something that we still do in Excel, but we're always looking for a better way to do that. And next slide, please. So finding great reviewers is sometimes the most challenging part of the process for all three of these opportunities. And we can spend a lot of time looking for great reviewers. Our program administrator for the, program administrator for bridging recently told me that she approached about 30 people before she was able to get the right reviewers for bridging opportunities. So it can take a lot of effort, and depends on what time of year you're chasing people down, if they're in study sections, or fall term can be very busy with people with teaching service. So it's always a challenge, but we're very lucky here to have a large faculty pool with a wide breadth of expertise who are very generous with their time. And they recognize the importance of this process. We try to maintain goodwill with them by not asking them more than once a year to participate in review service. And we express appreciation for their service. We send them all a personalized thank you card at the end of every calendar year. We feel that goes a long ways towards them knowing that we are grateful for their service. We also recognize that we're here to support them and don't take their service commitment as reviewers for granted. We try to be considerate of their time by not bogging them down with emails and reminders, and we trust they're going to get information to us, and we don't want to overburden them, respond quickly to questions, and we never ever assign a review to somebody in competition space without gaining their approval first. And next slide, please. Some of our tools for success: we rely on standard operating procedures that we maintain in our office. They ensure that programs are being managed in a consistent way, and we can also ensure that operations will be ongoing in the event of a staff absence or turnover. We rely on email templates and competition templates and info-ready review. It's just efficient, it's consistent, and nobody has to reinvent the wheel. Curated email groups. I told you that we have email groups for folks who have signed on to receive information about limited submissions, and we also have email groups here at U of M. We use a lot of web-based tools such as InfoReady, Michigan Experts, and we maintain our partnerships with Foundation Relations, our libraries, our Central Campus Office of Research and Development, and a lot of resources that we need to be aware of to be able to point our applicants to funding guides, to Foundation Relations, to proposal development, grant writing, and editing services. And finally, of course, we count on InfoReady Review for so many of those processes. And next slide, please. And finally, as part of our enterprise agreement, we are expanding across the campus, and we just are trying to be thoughtful and strategic about that as we work with our colleagues at the Central Campus Office of Research. We are developing transparent policies for having unique sites, memorandums of understanding, want to be able to provide training, and want to establish communities of practice around IT and user groups, and also create a community of stakeholders, a governing body who can help us develop the tool and prioritize feature requests and enhancements. And that's it. Thank you for letting me talk very quickly.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jill and Laura, for presenting that. That was great information. And just as a reminder, before we go on to Lisa's presentation, just as a reminder, please feel free to enter your questions in the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll answer all the questions at the end of the presentations. All right, next slide. All right, so switching gears here to Lisa Youngentop from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center. So Lisa is the Director of Research Development at the University of Tennessee's Health Science Center's main campus in Memphis. She reports to the Vice Chancellor for Research, and her primary focus is administering an ever-expanding seed grant program whose purpose is to create new collaborative research teams. She and her office also serve the UTHSC community by managing the limited submission process, running internal bridge funding programs, and disseminating funding opportunities to faculty. Before coming to UTHSC in 2015, Lisa spent 31 years as a lab manager in an NIH-funded neuroscience animal psychophysics lab at Upstate Medical University in Syracuse, New York. She earned her BS degree in biology from SUNY Oswego and is a member of the National Organization of Research Development Professionals as well. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us today, and go ahead and take it away.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here to share with you some information of how we use InfoReady Review here at UTHSC. Just want to thank everyone at InfoReady Review for the invitation, and thank all the previous panelists for providing tons of useful information. First slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to begin with a brief overview of my institution. Basically, the takeaway from this slide is that UTHSC is an academic healthcare center with 4 campuses across the state of Tennessee, comprised of 6 colleges, and a centralized office of research located here in Memphis. Next slide. Some information about my office. The Office of Research Development consists of 2 FTEs, myself, the director, and my right-hand woman, Administrative Specialist Jamie Whartonby. ORD has numerous responsibilities, but those related to the use of InfoReady Review include our intramural seed grant competitions, limited submissions, and our internal bridge funding programs. InfoReady Review is administered solely by my office, and for the most part, all the programs above are run in generally the same manner. Therefore, I'm going to spend the rest of this time here talking about how we use InfoReady Review to manage our intramural seed grant program called the Cornet Awards, since it has allowed us to use InfoReady Review in some pretty creative ways. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the Cornet Awards. As you'll see, although each Cornet competition has a different focus, the goal is always the same, creating new collaborations. We developed specific eligibility requirements for the program to achieve our goal of stimulating innovative interdisciplinary research among collaborative teams that were created in response to a specific Cornet RFA. The first being the submitted proposal must be a new line of research, and second is that each proposal must have at least 1 PI from each participating entity, which could be another college or an institution or whatever the collaborative is at that point. Next slide, please. So I mentioned we have many different types of Cornets. Outlined here are the main categories and focus areas of Cornet competitions that we have run. As you can see, we have internal collaborations between colleges, between basic scientists and clinicians. There are external collaboratives, including in-state, out-of-state, and international universities, and collaborations with industry partners. Also, you can see we funded Cornets in many different focus areas. Our VCR's goal here is to provide a Cornet opportunity that touches on each of the areas of excellence and cross-cutting platforms from our operational strategic plan for research. Next slide, please. All right, so we'll talk about creating collaborations. Start with these. So basically an external CORNET is created when the VCRs from UTHSC and another institution create a collaboration based on a shared area of institutional research strength. As you can imagine, one of the hurdles of creating out-of-institution collaborations is how to bring investigators together. This is where we had to think outside the box and become a bit creative. So for our global CORNETs, we used what we call an online matchmaking concept. This process involves sending out an RFA email announcement to each campus that's part of the collaborative, along with a research interest questionnaire. The questionnaire is an Excel sheet that includes fields for the investigator's name, contact information, and research interests. Interested investigators return the completed form, and the data is entered into a secure online Google Sheets page. When the Google Sheets page is fully loaded with all of the gathered researcher information, the link is emailed to all participating investigators who are directed to explore the Google Sheets database and to identify and then contact potential collaborators. Next slide, please. Our regional collaborations are handled the same way, but with an additional science speed dating component, which is managed by organizing a conference at one of the participating institutions. At the conference, researchers from each institution present their research through talks and posters. The speakers are selected by the VCRs, and anyone attending can present a poster. Time is set aside in the schedule to allow investigators to meet face-to-face to talk about a project of mutual interest based on data presented that day or information they found in the Google Sheets database. Another mechanism for helping offsite investigators to identify a UTHSC collaborator is by directing them to our Experts at UTHSC portal. This is a public-facing portal that showcases all of our active researchers. It's a part of an Elsevier product called Pure. Experts at UTHSC is also an excellent resource for finding collaborators for our internal CORNET awards. Next slide. So creating a competition. When we're creating a new competition in InfoReady Review, we use the template from the most recent CORNET competition. That way only minor details need to be changed, such as titles, dates, descriptions, such things. The bulk of the competition, including the assessment questions, remain the same. Just in my experience, when creating competition, I strongly suggest that you request as much information as possible in the applicant requirement fields when you're building the competition. Any information you think you might need during or after the competition, you should ask for up front. This saves an incredible amount of time during pre-review and post-competition tasks, such as creating notification letters, contacting applicants, creating reports, updating databases, whatever else you do with all that information provided. We also use the applicant requirement fields to confirm the PI's eligibility by asking yes/no eligibility questions and adding text in the note to applicant field, such as, if you answered no to this question, you're not eligible to apply. Gives the investigators another place where they can actually be asked, are you eligible for this? When creating a global competition, we use the share option in InfoReady Review to share the competition with the select group of UTHSC investigators who have shown prior interest in the collaboration. We do this by setting the remove from homepage date to a date earlier than the launch date, so it doesn't appear on the InfoReady Review homepage. So this ensures that only investigators who have already shown interest and are in the Google Sheets database can apply for the competition. There's probably a better way to do that, but I don't know what it is at this juncture, but that works for us. For reasons I'll explain shortly, the UTHSC PI is always the submitting PI in multi-institutional CORNETs. Next slide, please. The RFA announcement. We announce all competitions via e-blast to multiple UTHSC listservs. We have a general faculty listserv in which all UTHSC faculty are automatically subscribed. But we also have created a much more focused voluntary researchers listserv to which anyone from UTHSC, which would be faculty, staff, students, can subscribe. It provides general news and announcements coming out of the Office of Research. We also have a Fund Ops listserv, which is also voluntary, where internal and external funding opportunities are announced. The Cornet RFA announcements begin 1 month out. They continue weekly with our final announcement the day before the submission deadline. And because of the popularity of this Cornet program, we rely on brand recognition in the announcements. We use the same logo and header for every Cornet competition. People see it, they get interested, and they therefore go and read the RFA. It's worked very well for us. Also, InfoReady Review login and submission directions are included at the bottom of every announcement. We believe that repetition is our friend. Next slide. Okay, the material on this slide is taken from one of our Cornet RFAs. The main point here is not the requirements, but to show that in the RFA, we notify applicants that submissions will only be accepted via InfoReady Review, and that templates are available for download on both the UTHSC InfoReady Review homepage and on the specific competition page. The obvious benefit of having templates is the information provided is in the same format for all applicants, so you don't have to search the entire proposal to get specific information. Next slide. In the RFA announcement, we inform applicants that after an InfoReady Review submission, they will receive an automated email confirmation. Everybody always wants confirmation that you got their proposal, so we do it right up front. They are directed to contact ORD if they have not received this email within 5 minutes of submission. We've developed a policy for multi-institutional collaboratives, which requires that only the UTHSC PI may submit the team's proposal into InfoReady Review. This eliminates a lot of off-campus PI submission issues, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and also applicants with unaccepted email domains, since there are limitations on the domains in InfoReady Review. We set those limitations up, but it keeps it tight. So in my experience, applicant issues related to InfoReady Review submissions are most commonly due to, number one, not filling in all the required fields. InfoReady Review has done a great job in telling applicants why a proposal can't be submitted by highlighting the missing information in red. So it's to direct people to where the problem is. Second, not choosing a primary organization. I give directions on how to do this in the RFA eBlast announcement, on the IRR homepage. Still, I always get at least a few calls, less and less the longer we have it, but still get calls on why they can't submit. But I have found that it takes a lot less time to talk an applicant through the initial login, selecting primary organization process on the phone than replying to an email query with written directions. And the good news is once they're in the system, they're in, and that's always a good thing. Third, believe it or not clicking the submit button. This happens more than you can imagine. And finally, not reading directions. And basically, need I say more? We all struggle with people not reading directions. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the review process, starting with a pre-review, ORD pre-reviews for eligibility and completeness. We create a checklist based on requirements outlined in the announcement. And if a revision is required, we contact applicants by email instead of using InfoReady Review. So we check the disable, accept, or return application option in InfoReady Review. Then comes the review committee selection. We always use a minimum of 3 reviewers for each proposal. Based on the research focus of the Cornet, a list of potential reviewers who have general or specific expertise in the research focus area is created. We get input from the VCR, chairs, deans, to get some help to create that list. Then we send out a quote, VCR has invited you to be an expert reviewer email to potential reviewers. We are now in the process of moving to use past awardees to deepen the pool of reviewers. In the award letters, we will add a line, something like a condition of accepting this award is agreeing to be a reviewer for a future competition. We're also going to be incorporating that into our internal bridge funding programs as well. If a Cornet collaboration includes a partner outside of UTHSC, the same number of reviewers from each partnership, each partnering institution are included. And these reviewers are chosen by the each institution's VCR. All right, next slide. Do we go? There we go. After all the invited reviewers agree, which of course they do, right off the bat, I'm sure, we move ahead and assign reviewers in info-ready review. We usually assign no more than 8 proposals to a single reviewer. We allow 3 to 4 weeks for reviews to be completed. The review invitations are sent through info-ready review. Also, I make myself a reviewer for every competition. That way I receive all info-ready review correspondence and reminders that are sent to reviewers. Most importantly, that the initial review invitation email. So I know that it went out if I'm getting it myself. Once the application grid shows I'm the only reviewer left who has not completed reviews, I delete myself as a reviewer. A little more on the review process. Call me paranoid, but just to be sure that the invited reviewer receives or doesn't ignore the email from info-ready review, I immediately follow up with an email to the reviewers asking if the info-ready review assignment email was received. In the email, I also request that the reviewer log into info-ready review to be sure the assigned reviews can be accessed. I request that the reviewer take a minute or 2 to look over assigned proposals to see if any obvious conflict of interest exists. We define a COI as being a collaborator, past or present, or any other COI the reviewer feels might interfere with his or her ability to give a fair and unbiased review. This request hopefully reduces the number of phone calls that I get from reviewers notifying me of COI days before the review deadline, which happens, still happens. Finally, I ask for confirmation of the receipt of email. If I don't receive a response within 3 days, I follow up with another email. Again, I just want to be sure the reviewers know they have been assigned, and getting confirmation from them is the best way to achieve this, at least for here. Also, I always remind the reviewers to be sure to sign into info-ready review with the same email that I used when assigning reviews. Otherwise, they won't be able to see their assignments. Here at UTHSC, we have multiple campuses, and although everyone has a UTHSC email, faculty often use their home campus email and sometimes even use their personal email address. Next slide. For our global collaboratives, as you can imagine, time differences, and we do these with China, several of them. So time differences and potential language barriers make addressing info-ready reviewing issues a bit more complicated. So instead of having them review in info-ready review, we mail a hard copy of the proposals and the assessment forms to international reviewers. Once I receive the completed forms, I review by proxy, manually entering the reviews into info-ready review. Next slide, please. Let's see, assessment and scoring. For review, we use only one routing step. It's been a process that we've actually been paring down over time, but the one is just working very well for us. We use 4 to 5 assessment questions, which are of the comment and rating combination variety. I found it really helpful to add a note to reviewers in the instructions section of each assessment question. Reviewers are told to successfully submit a review, a comment is required in the text box. If they don't want to comment, they should write none. That way some text gets in that box, and info-ready review will accept that review. We use the 1 to 9 scale, with 1 equals the best, to mimic NIH. System reviewers are familiar with. And in the label field, we provide a description of what each number on the scale means. Again, the same description that NIH uses. Next slide, please. Awarding, yay. Or let's see, ORD downloads and prints the application reviewer report from InfoReady Review. I rank proposals based on assessment scores before presenting it to the VCR to make final funding decisions. If it's a multi-institutional CORNET, a phone or Zoom meeting is arranged so all VCRs can discuss which proposals will be funded. We do not use InfoReady Review for notifying applicants of funding decisions, although we may begin to start doing that in the future. Each awardee on the CORNET team is sent an email with an attached congratulatory letter signed by the VCR. Because we like to share good news, the chancellor, the COO, the dean, and the chair are all copied on that email. Not funded CORNET teams receive a group email with an attached quote like, "Thank you for your excellent proposal, but you were not chosen for funding" letter, also signed by the VCR. Next slide. So after the competition is over and the award letters have gone out, ORD updates each application in InfoReady Review as awarded or rejected. A new template is created for the competition that incorporates any changes or edits made while the competition was active. We don't archive because I'm not really sure how that works, and I'm paranoid that I won't be able to get access to it in the future. So that's one of my learn how to use on my IRR to-do list. We do not use the progress reporting component of InfoReady Review for this mechanism because we have a CORNET symposium at the end of each year where all awardees from the preceding year present their data to all current and past awardees. And this event is open to the campus. And very importantly, in an effort to keep newly formed unfunded CORNET teams working together, we use our funding opportunity database, funding it's institutional, which is another Elsevier product, to search for external funding opportunities that match up with their submitted CORNET proposals. Next slide, last slide. So to finish up on a broader note, a very quick overview of other ways we are using InfoReady Review. As I mentioned earlier, we're currently using InfoReady Review for 2 internal bridge funding mechanisms and external limited submission funding opportunities. Much of the process I've described today for the CORNET Award is consistent with how we manage these other programs in InfoReady Review. And thanks to information shared in the most recent InfoReady Review webinar by our colleagues at Drexel, we will now be using InfoReady Review for setting up on-site one-on-one consultations between faculty and our grant consultant firm. And finally, going forward, we are also considering using InfoReady Review for routing faculty requests for copy editing, scientific writing, and grant consulting services. And that's it. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. And thanks once again to all of our panelists for taking the time to provide some of their best practices here and some really helpful information. So I know we only have a couple of minutes here, so we'll dive right into the question and answer. And we've had some great questions submitted here from our attendees. And again, please feel free to submit questions through the question box on your GoToWebinar control panel. So the first question is for Laura and Jill at U of M. The question is, how do you track the process of acknowledging central policy from all new research administrators? Is there a form, just an email, or something within InfoReady that you use to track that?
Hi, it's Laura. We actually rely on the reporting in InfoReady to see if a progress report has been submitted, but we follow up with our administrators. When something is missing from the report, we know who to reach out to. And I actually think that InfoReady is working on incorporating administrator names into reporting. So that's going to make my job of hunting people down a little bit easier. And that's how we do that.
Great. Thanks so much, Jill. And this goes to either panelist, but how do you talk a little bit about the process of how proposals that are vetted and accepted in the internal component of your review process, how those are ultimately uploaded to grants.gov or to the external funding agency once you've run the competition and selected a proposal or proposals.
This is Jill. We actually have a homegrown system that we call eResearch, and Laura referred to it during her presentation. That is synced with grants.gov, and so the SF424 forms and all of that are submitted right through our eResearch system. So I don't think InfoReady Review doesn't have that functionality yet, so we're using the systems in tandem and manually transferring over information that we need from one system to the next.
Here we basically, once we have a nominee for a limited submission, I send out a letter of nomination to the individual with kind of next steps of what they need to do with deadlines, and copy our sponsored programs office. And basically at that point, the whole thing shifts over to sponsored programs. So I'm kind of out of the loop at that point, and sponsored programs picks up in our Cayuse system. That is what they use.
Great, thanks so much. Next question. This is a great question. How have your reviewers adjusted to using InfoReady Review, and what has their experience been like?
So here at Michigan,
for either panelist.
Okay. At Michigan, we've had great response from our reviewers. I think they find the tool very easy to use and intuitive. They can use it from anywhere, so they can access it via the web wherever they are in the world, which is very convenient. We have dual email accounts here at Michigan. We have one at Medicine and one for Central Campus. So the only problem we really have for our researchers here at Medicine is if an administrator unfortunately assigns the review to them to their medical school email account, and they try to use the single sign-on using their Central Campus email account, which is the default account for everybody here. They can run into issues, but that's just, we can remedy that easily, and it's just a little education issue on our behalf. So we try to be as clear about that as possible when we request their assistance.
I think you also want to be conscious too of maybe the fact that some of our faculty are not as comfortable with new online systems as some others are, and maybe some of our older faculty are hesitant with it, and it just takes a little extra time with them to make sure that they are comfortable with the system, as with any new system.
Yeah, I would agree. It's been a great response on our end also. Early on, a lot of phone calls because it was new, but it was relatively painless, I think. And now so many people are in the system and are familiar either with being an applicant or a reviewer that it seems to be going very well. And if not, I always tell people to reach out to me and I can talk them through. And if not, I'll have to say the support at InfoReady Review, it's just taking care of any issue we've ever had with issues with usually off-campus reviewers.
Great, thanks so much. And kind of as a follow-up on that question, do you have, and would you be willing to share with the attendees any of the kind of training and socialization resources that you've used to kind of onboard InfoReady Review? And that's obviously outside of the administrator guides and all of the support that InfoReady offers during the onboarding process.
I can speak for us. Actually, we don't have anything. This has been a trial and error process for us, and I think when I just got this presentation together is the first time I've actually laid out process and stuff. So these slides are pretty much all I have to offer from this end. Maybe that's something to do for the future.
We do have a lot of standard operating procedures here. There's probably a lot of information that is extraneous to what we're doing in InfoReady, but we're always happy to share our best practices and procedures. So just feel free to reach out to us.
Great, thanks so much. And just for reference for the attendees, our panelist contact information will be provided and is in the copy of the slides on the handout section, and it's also right up on your screen right there. So it looks like we are out of time here, and I know you all have busy days to get back to. As we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, I'll be staying on and doing a very brief kind of high-level demo of InfoReady Review. I want to thank everyone for attending today, and once again, thank you especially to our panelists. We really appreciate your time and energy in putting this together, and I know our attendees do as well. So if everyone could just give us a couple minutes here to switch over to our demo site, we will do that. All right, awesome. So for those of you who have never seen InfoReady Review before, what I'm going to do now is kind of take you through a very high-level demo of the solution and give you a sense of kind of how it works and what it can do. And obviously, if you'd like to see a larger demo and see the full functionality, please feel free to reach out after the webinar. We'll provide my contact info as well, and I'd be happy to schedule a time for us to check it out. All right, so what we're looking at right now is my InfoReady Review demo site. You'll notice that everything on this demo site is branded for InfoReady. But I'm actually going to start out looking at one of our panelists' InfoReady Review sites. So this is one of the University of Michigan Medical School's instances of InfoReady Review. So you'll see that everything is branded according to the institution, and this branding will persist all the way through the system for your applicants, reviewers, and admins, which are the three major roles using the system. So really, it just looks like a piece of your existing IT infrastructure. And so the page I'm on right now is called the home page. And what we're seeing here is all of the different RFPs or calls for proposals that the medical school is currently kind of offering through their InfoReady Review site. And so if I'm a PI, I can come look at this list of open opportunities. I can sort by any of the categories that the institution has created or by the award cycle. So if I'm interested in a given opportunity here, I can click on the link, see a full kind of description, any files that the admin wants me to use, a budget template, guidelines, anything like that will live right under here. And then if I want to go ahead and submit my application for internal review, I click apply, it'll ask me to log in, and it'll take me right to the application form and the application requirements for this particular opportunity. So since I'm not a PI or an administrator at Michigan, I'm going to go ahead and go back into our demo site here, and we're going to actually kind of put on our administrative hats. And so as an administrator, I can come into my InfoReady Review site, and if I want to launch a competition or build out a competition workflow template, I can go over here to my Create tab. And what this allows me to do is build out a complete workflow template for the entire kind of process of this RFP application and review process. So if you look over here on the right side of the screen, you'll see these 6 tabs, and we're actually going to build out our complete workflow using these 6 different tabs. So first we'll build out the details, which are the front-facing kind of RFP type data that we want to show our applicants. We can then build out custom requirements, any kind of forms or fields we need our applicants to fill out, any kind of files we need them to upload. We can then build out our routing steps. And so I'll just go ahead and build in a sample routing step here. And this is going to be a committee scores and comments step. And we'll use a 3-metric rubric. So what I'll do is select a 3 comments and ratings combination. And so to build the rubric for this first step of my review process, I can go in here and edit and kind of build out different metrics or approvals or whatever I need for the format of that review step relative to this competition. So in this case, since it's a multi-metric rubric, I'm going to build in specific metrics. So maybe my first metric is feasibility, and I can tell my reviewers to please score from 1 to 5 on feasibility. Right, and then I can edit my range from 1 to 5. And then I just go down the list and create the rest of the metrics on my rubric. And so now when we assign reviewers to proposals in this step, they'll see and have to complete the rubric that we just built out. Moving down through our workflow, we can customize the auto emails and notifications that are going to go to different stakeholders here. We can also set up automated post-award or progress reports. So I can set up N number of progress reports to be automatically solicited after I've actually named an awardee here. And then finally, when we go to finalize, we can save this workflow that we've built out as a template. We can launch it today as a competition, or we can actually post-date the launch. And so we heard our panelists talking a little bit about how to template out these workflows. And what this basically means is you really only have to go in and build out the workflow once. Let's say for all of your limited submissions, you would build a limited submissions template. And then the next time you have a limited submission opportunity, it's very easy just to launch that template, change any pertinent information that's specific to that particular award, and then launch that as an open opportunity for your applicants to apply to. And that's one of the reasons, that's a big reason why people talk about InfoReady as being able to kind of supercharge their capacity, because you can very easily launch and manage competitions. And so once I've actually launched my competition, I'll sign out here. Once I've actually launched my competition, it's going to show up here for our applicants to view on the home page. And so again, if the applicant's interested, they can click that link, see the full program description. Once they click apply, it'll ask them to log in with their institutional single sign-on. And then once they're authenticated, it's going to spit them right into the application requirements that we just created in our workflow, whatever those may be. These are all custom fields that would have been created for this specific opportunity or as a template for similar opportunities. And so from the applicant perspective, it's a very easy application form to fill out. And as an admin, you can again customize this to your heart's delight. You can add multiple choice questions, force numerical entries, start and end dates, some file uploads that we're being asked for. Reference letters. So as an applicant, all I have to do here, if the admin's asking for reference letters, is enter the email addresses of the referees, and the system will automatically reach out to those referees, collect the letters of reference, and collate them with my application. I'm also being asked for a chair approval here as a prerequisite to consider my application qualified to move into the merit review. And so in this case, all I have to do here is enter the email address of my chair. And once I submit my application, that chair will automatically get a solicitation to approve my my proposal through the system. And then I can either save as a draft or submit my application. So once the application is submitted, the admin can go into their Manage tab here, find whatever opportunity they want to manage. And so we're going to go into our Fund 85 award. This is just a sample award. And so as those applications come in, we're going to be able to see them as the admin here, and kind of where they are in our workflow and where they need to go very, very clearly. So what I'm looking at here is all the proposals or applications that have been submitted for this particular opportunity, who the applicant is, and then where each application is in whatever workflow we built out for this review process. So I can see for my first step, I had a chair approval. If I want to just see the ones that were approved, I can do that. I can see my second step is a committee scores and comments. So this is basically a 3-metric rubric, and it's showing me an average score for each metric on the rubric for each proposal. I can sort and filter by any of these fields to get my top ranking proposal, for example. And then this record is going to carry through all the way to the award decision, making it very easy for us to route certain proposals through the process. If I want to route these two proposals to my next step here, I can say, assign reviewers to applications. I would select a routing step that I created in my workflow, and then I'd be able to assign anybody I wanted to as a reviewer relative to the proposals that I selected. I can also dig into the proposals themselves. So I'm digging into Thomas Peak's proposal now. So right off the bat, I can see all of the information that we asked Thomas to submit as part of his application form. I can see the application files that Thomas submitted either individually, or if I click PDF, it'll collate everything for me. I can manage reviewers specifically for Thomas's application here. So for Thomas's application, I can see that Jane Doe was the chair who was assigned to approve. She submitted her review at 12:27, and she approved. If Jane had not submitted her review, there would be a resend button. And if I want to assign another reviewer to this step, in place of Jane, all I have to do is click Assign Reviewer and enter the reviewer's email address or email addresses if you're assigning multiple reviewers. I'll set a deadline here, and then the reviewer will get a notification that they have new reviews assigned to them. If I want to award or reject Thomas, I can come over here, and for the award notification, for example, it's going to give me an auto email that I can edit or templatize if I want to change the messaging. And then if I want to include the feedback from reviewers on this email, I can just click that button, and the feedback will be included for the applicant to read. And I can even sanitize this in line here if I want to. And you'll notice that the applicant's also going to be blinded to who the reviewer is. So that's kind of a sneak peek of our system and how it works. Again, I'm happy to schedule larger demos with anybody who wants to see the solution. But that's a pretty good taste of what we do. I want to thank everybody once again for taking the time to join us for today's webinar. And I will actually stay for a few minutes and answer any additional questions as well if we need to do that. Great, and right there you also see my contact information. So if you want to go ahead and shoot me an email if you have any questions and you prefer to chat offline, we can do that. We do have a couple questions that came in during that demo, so I will stay and answer those for anybody who wants to stay here. The first one is, can we include an NDA for the reviewer to sign and upload? That's a great question. Yeah, so there's probably a couple of ways to actually do that. You can also build it into your routing step where you have the reviewer actually upload an NDA as part of their assignment relative to that step. You could also create an acknowledgement in the routing step where the reviewer has to sign that acknowledgement. And part of that could be an NDA. They have to sign that in order to be able to submit their review. All right, so that was actually the last question that we had submitted here. And once again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us, especially you all-stars who stayed for our demo as well. We appreciate it. Have an awesome day, and we hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks so much.